What shapes us more? The stories we're told or the ones we discover along the way? Today's conversation invites us to look a little deeper at that question. Because what if who we become is influenced not just by what we experience, but by the stories we carry about our families, our past, and even ourselves? I'm so pleased to welcome author Leslie A. Rasmussen to Girl Take the Lead. Leslie is an award winning novelist and former television comedy writer who has written for stars like Roseanne Barr, Burt Reynolds, Norm Macdonald, and Drew Carey. In her latest novel, which, by the way, has gotten 4 awards, When People Leave, and the powerful role storytelling plays in helping us make sense of our lives. Leslie also shares her journey from Hollywood writer to novelist and what it means to follow your creative path, even when life takes you and gives you unexpected turns. And she reminds us of something both simple and profound. The stories we uncover can change how we see everything. This is a thoughtful and deeply human conversation about family, identity, and the narratives that shape us. Let's jump in. Here you go. Hey, Leslie, welcome to Girl Take the Lead.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great conversation. And why don't we begin by you introducing yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Okay, my name is Leslie A. Rasmussen. The A is in there only because there's another Leslie Rasmussen that did something that I didn't want Google to bring up. And I started my career as a sitcom writer, and I wrote for a lot of different people: Roseanne Barr, Burt Reynolds, Drew Carey. And then I stopped because I had kids and I wanted to raise my kids. I went back to school. I got a master's in nutrition and I did that for 10 years. And during that 10 years, I also kept writing sort of humorous essays, which ended up on Huffington Post. So I have like 20 of them up there. And after about 8 years of my own business, I really missed the writing. So I decided to go back and do that. I closed my business. I wrote my first book, which is titled After Happily Ever After. And that came out in 2021. I wrote my second book that came out in 2023 called The Stories We Cannot Tell. And my third book came out this last May called When People Leave.
Mm. So tell us a bit more about the books. And you and I've been speaking a little bit about some emotion of grief that kind of weaves through, especially your last book. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize it until not that long ago that all my books have a little bit of grief in them about something. So the first book has grief because it's a woman in midlife and she is grieving the life she used to have as her daughter goes off to college and
Mhm.
what she could have had and what she has now. The second book is about two women who they meet in a support group when they find out that the pregnancies they're carrying may have major birth defects. So there's obviously some grief in the decisions that they have to make. And the third book, which is When People Leave, is definitely about grief. It's about three sisters whose mother seems perfectly fine and she takes her own life and they move into her house, their actual, childhood home, to try to figure out why she would do that. And they
Mm.
find out all these secrets she had, and she was somebody they really didn't even know.
Yeah. There is something to be said about the secrets that come out after
Yes,
someone passes. So,
exactly.
so was your story kind of a parallel to other people's lives you knew or your own and the sisters that you had and their dynamics? You have sisters. So did you call on that when you were writing the book?
I did not, in the sense, I wanted to write a book about three sisters because I have two sisters and I thought that would be fun. But I also made the decision to make them so different than my sisters. So nobody, including, and me too, could pick out anything. What I did do though is my sisters and I, we give each other a lot of crap, so to speak. Like we love each other. We adore each other. I saw them this last weekend, but we love to like tease each other.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to put that in the book. And so some of the dialogue is actually conversations that my sister and I have had or things that happened in our childhood. So it feels more realistic, which is why I did that.
Uh-huh.
But I just thought it would be fun to write something about sisters. And then I had my husband and I had a friend who we thought everything was fantastic, and he was running his own show on television, and he went home that night and killed himself.
Mhm.
And I'm sure his family knew why, but nobody on the outside had any clue why. So that
Mhm.
was one reason. But the other reason was I had read an article about teenagers who went off to college. Their parents kept getting all these stories that they were having fun and doing all these things. And then the parents found out they took their own lives. And the
Mhm.
parents had to go on this journey to figure out why would my kid do that? And they had to go through their friends and their school and all those kinds of things. So I thought that was just sort of an interesting thing to place in this book and see the journey and then family secrets and how
Yeah.
that can affect people's decisions that they don't even realize they're making.
Yeah. It's so true. She's speaking from experience on this end. So what did you learn most about grief, especially in this last book?
I really learned, and I knew this from my own grief. I lost my father 9 years ago, that grief is so up and down.
Mhm.
You can't predict it. You could get in the car and hear a song and be in the best mood in the world and start sobbing.
Yep.
You could, be talking about the person and be laughing, but inside you're feeling like this is kind of weird because when my father passed away, my whole family got together that day, and my mom and my sisters and we were telling the best stories and we were laughing, but then 5 seconds later we were crying.
Yeah.
So grief is just such a all over the place thing, which I knew, but I tried to use that in the book. And there's
Yeah.
also an anger that comes into play, especially if somebody takes their own life.
Mhm.
But there's also an anger I noticed with myself. My father had medical issues, so he didn't want to die. He just, did.
Mhm.
But there was an anger like, why'd you leave me? How
Mhm.
could you leave me? How could you go when I need you and I want to talk to you? And it wasn't the anger like I hate you, but there was an anger of just they're gone and you're helpless. You
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. And that sometimes brings a little bit of an anger.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the sisters all kind of experienced grief a little bit differently in your book.
Hmm.
So you probably did you have a point of view about for each of them how they would deal with grief or support each other in the grief?
Well, I also wanted it to be up and down. So
Mhm.
some of the sisters at different times are angry. Some of the sisters are sad at different times. And some of them get angry at the other one when they're angry and they're not, and they're dealing with different emotions. So I kind of wanted their grief to be messy also, and not to
Mhm.
be just a straight line with all three of them, except at the very beginning. They're all obviously very sad. But they also immediately start to have different feelings and to almost judge each other sometimes on those feelings. Like that one of them is angry and the other one's like, how can you be angry? She loved us and we loved her. And then the other one gets angry. It's like, now you're angry. So it's pretty much
Yeah.
not linear and it's all over the place. And I really wanted all the sisters to kind of feel that. And at times, one sister would go in one direction and the other two would go in the other direction. And it would be hard for them to meet in the middle.
Yeah. Well, especially with three, because if there's two going this way and one going another way, they're all experiencing things differently, but not wanting to be alone
Right.
and wanting to bring the others together to share their same timing for grief.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't do that.
Exactly. And they did come together a lot,
Mhm.
but they were very supportive of each other, no matter what.
Yeah.
Even when, one of them, even when they were angry at one of them, they would still step up and support the other one.
Was there one of them, one of the characters that had the harder time?
Um, I think I think Morgan had the most guilt in a certain way because she was out of town and so she didn't talk to her mother during that time, so she kind of felt more guilt.
Uh huh.
I think Charlie felt like she was the therapist. So why didn't she
Right.
see this? How could she not see what was going on?
She's
Which
the
would have been
professional.
impossible in this situation.
Yeah.
And then Abby, I think, had a hard time because she related the most to the mother.
Yeah.
They had a very special bond in certain ways. So I think they all pretty much had a really hard time in different ways.
Hmm. Hmm. I think I related a little bit more to Abby.
Mm.
But she just seemed to be a bit more into action and taking control of things.
She
Uh,
tried,
yeah.
but she was the baby. So it's also the other two sisters like, well, you're the baby. So,
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
always listen to you.
Yeah. That's definitely related to Abby. So, so how did hope play a role in your
I
book?
I think that, well, first of all, I'm not gonna give anything away, but I'm just gonna say it ends happily.
Yes, it does.
There's always hope. I think when you're in the middle of grief, it's hard to see hope and it's hard to see getting past it.
Hmm.
But little by little, you kind of just start to move on, basically, even though you'll always miss the person. So I
Hmm.
think that there's always hope. And I mean, I hope that's true. I hope that people who are left behind always have hope that their lives will eventually
Yeah.
be somewhat a new normal, basically. I mean, that's really what it is a new normal without that person.
Yeah. One thing, tell me what you think of this, that I've kind of learned recently about grief is that we don't get the joy and the happiness and the beauty of life deeply unless we really have loved and given, and that when that's gone, there's the grief of having done that.
Yeah.
But they're linked. You don't get one without the other. Do you think that?
I do. And I also think that sometimes people are afraid to be vulnerable. And until they lose somebody, it's almost like, okay, now I really have to love even more because I know what it's like to lose somebody, but I never really connected, to other
Mhm.
people because maybe I've been scared of losing somebody. And once they lose somebody and kind of move through that, they can see that's where the hope comes in. They can see that, yes, you can absolutely love someone and you can move on from that and then you can love again. And I
Yeah.
think it can also open somebody up to see that vulnerability is what really connects you to people.
Yeah. Also, too, I think because you had a family unit, the three sisters with each other, and another character that comes up. I won't give that away, but
Right.
there's there's community.
Hmm.
And even though they had different reactions to grief, it's the shared experience that they had. Yeah.
That's really important. I think the worst thing somebody can do when they're going through a loss is to disconnect and stay home. And I don't mean you go out and party, but you need to be with a community of people. When I lost my father, there were a number of people I knew who had lost a parent. So it was like, you don't want to be part of that club, but you're sort of taken in by that community who says, I
Mhm.
totally understand what it's like to lose a parent.
Mhm.
And that was really important to me
Yeah.
because my sisters were all going through it at the same time. My mother obviously was going through a lot. And so I had my sisters, but sometimes it's harder to go to the people that are going through the same thing as you are at that moment. And
Mhm.
it's easier to go to friends who understand, but they're not going through it at that moment. And you can see they made it through. So you'll make it through. It's like that hope again. I'm very grateful for my community, very grateful for the people that are in my life because they really do help to talk to me and support me and get me through whatever it is that I'm going through.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes it's hard to ask for help in those moments. We don't really know. I mean, we're kind of like paralyzed with
Mhm.
the shock and the trauma of losing somebody. Um, and sometimes it's that community that can help you see, like, okay, well, here's a meal. You don't have to cook,
Right,
or here's some flowers, even to make your aesthetic eyes happier and
right.
more delightful. Just little things like that, I think, let people know that you're there with them.
Yeah, because I'm not normally one to ask for help. That's just
Yeah.
not who I am. I'm pretty much somebody who just does stuff on their own. But I will say that when you lose somebody, and I learned this when other people lost somebody, just to reach out and say, "Do you need a hug? I'm here to talk. We can talk about anything. We don't have to talk about whatever it is that you're going through." Because there are a lot of people like me who don't think of reaching out. And I had a
Mhm.
number of people just text me and say, "I'm here. You want to talk? I'm
Mhm.
here." And
Mhm.
that helped a lot. It helped me reach out more because they already had reached out.
Yeah.
But it is really important to reach out if you don't get that support coming back in.
Yeah. Did you work self-compassion into any of the characters in the book? Like I think sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves during those times. I know that when I lost my dad, I was in, like go mode. I didn't really take care of myself during that time. I mean, I ate well, I slept, I did those things, the basics,
Yeah.
but give myself space to feel the emotions or to process emotions. That took a long time.
I was going to say sometimes I'm like that too. I just start going and I do things and I don't always take the time to sit down all by myself and say, "Okay, what do you need?"
Yeah.
Like it's just easier to jump into action and help
Yeah.
out with something or help somebody else or whatever those things are. And sometimes it's like I would go and lay in my bed at night and just lay there and go, "Oh, now I feel this." And
Yeah.
nobody wants to feel it because it's not fun to feel.
Yeah.
But if you keep pushing it aside and you don't have self compassion, or in this case with the book, some of the three sisters, I don't think they had a lot of self compassion because they were so involved in finding out why she did it that they
Yeah.
all said they had to put the grief a little bit on hold because they were so involved in why would she do this? Why would she do this? And it almost pushed their grief off to some
Yeah.
extent. And even though they were dealing with it with each other, their grief was also pushed off a little bit because they had this other mission. And I think that helped them get through that part of it too by pushing it off. But then they all did feel it at times.
Yeah. It was beautiful. And the characters that you and the different women, I think all of us can read your book and relate to one of them a little bit more than the others. But um, I loved the way that you worked them in and had them experience the emotions and the anger and expressing it with each other and having safety to do that with each other.
Because they had that bond of being sisters and they
Yeah.
could snap at each other and
Yeah.
come back from that. I mean, sometimes with friends, you're not going to do that, but you always know if you have a relationship with your sisters that you can snap at them or you
Yeah.
can sit down with them and say, "Look, honestly, I don't like that this happened. Can we talk about this?" And you know that there's going to be there. You know this friend is your friend for life and they're not going to just cut you off. Where
Yeah.
another friend, if you said, "Look, I don't like that you did this," they may say, "Well, I'm not happy with you either." And, throw
Exactly.
something out or whatever. But the
But you come back
sisters,
to it.
I also wanted to make sure that the sisters had enough fun. Like, I don't mean fun
Yeah.
like running around fun, but I mean between each other.
Yeah.
Like their quote unquote, I don't want to call them arguments, but their dialogue is a
Yeah.
lot of back and forth of obviously they adore each other, but they
Yeah.
also give each other crap because that's what we do. They're sarcastic or they point out things like with sisters, something can happen when you're a kid and you can grow up and still point it out and say, "I remember when you did this and I can't believe you did that." And it's funny. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
everybody laughs at it now, but at the time it was traumatizing.
Right. Right. And give it to our sisters to remember everything.
Oh yeah, we all remember everything with
Yeah.
sisters, yes.
So, well, are you going to write another book?
I'm actually a little over halfway through my next book.
Oh, yay.
Thank you. This one, I Don't want to go into too much right now, but it's kind of a romantic comedy and kind of not. So it does have
Okay.
some romantic comedy in it.
Yeah.
But there's some other stuff in there also that my other, all three of my books dealt with like a little bit heavier issues. So
Yes.
this one's a lot lighter. I just
Okay.
felt like I was ready to just write something a little bit lighter. There's still an issue, but it's not like a major issue that's in
Yeah.
my other books.
Well, I was so grateful you gave us a happy ending. You already mentioned that, so I'm not giving anything away.
Yeah.
But the while I was reading it, I was thinking of it like British crime mystery
Mm,
that's going to leave me totally on the edge with my heart broken and the characters,
okay.
just totally annihilated. And you didn't do that. I was
No.
like, oh, thank you. Thank you, Leslie, for
It's
not
funny
taking
because
me.
my first book, it ends hopeful, but it does not end with the bow tied up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how that was going to go over, so I was very nervous. I would say overwhelmingly everybody said, I'm so glad you didn't tie it up. There were a few readers that drove me crazy. What happened? What happened? So I actually wrote an epilogue and sent it to them of what I
That's
thought would
great.
happen with these two characters.
Yeah.
Just because it was like, okay, I'm just going to send this to you to make you happy. But the other two books, I wanted to have happy endings because they do have tough time, all the characters going through all this. So I did make happy endings for those two.
Well, I think we could all use a little hope, happy endings right now.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you gave us that. Too much reality is in our faces right now. It's like,
Exactly. So we need a little bit of happiness at the end.
so, any other insights you'd like to leave with our audience today?
I think the main thing is if you're going through anything, whatever those things are, reach out to somebody.
Mhm.
Don't just deal with it on your own because, or even a therapist, but somebody that you can talk to and tell your real emotions, even if those are ugly emotions. Even
Mhm.
though, if that's, I can't stand this person, I had a terrible relationship with them and they died and I don't know what to do. I know somebody who did not have a good relationship with her father, and she, at the end, when he was dying, she just sat with him and talked to him and talked everything through. So it was really important for that. But at
Yeah.
his funeral, she said, I can't lie and say he was the greatest father in the world, but I can talk about him at the end of his life. And
Mhm.
that's what she did. So she had, this mixed feelings about it. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important because sometimes whoever's gone may affect your life completely, but it may not be, it may be that was not a good relationship. And you have to be okay with having those feelings and working through them. And I think that if you don't reach out to people who are understanding in your life, then you bottle all that up and
Yeah.
talk about self care. That's really not good for you. So
Mhm.
I just hope people who read this book, first of all, I hope they relate to one of the characters. I really
Mhm.
do. They were fun writing, and I think there's different personalities there that somebody should be able to relate to. But I like my readers to not be alone and to see themselves in the characters or see their family or to just
Mhm.
feel like somebody hears them,
Yeah.
when they read, because it's fiction, but still, you can get a lot from fiction. So that's, I think, what I would leave with this audience is just please reach out. Reach out to
Yeah.
somebody who, you trust.
Yeah. Very good. Well, how can our listeners find you, follow you, and get your book?
So my book is available everywhere. You can ask for it in your local library and they'll buy it. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those good places.
Mhm.
I have a website that is lesliearasmussen.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. I also have books that I'll sign and mail out to you. You can pay for a book on there. I'm also on Instagram at Leslie R. Author. I'm on Facebook at Leslie A. Rasmussen Author. And just so you know, the audiobook should be out this week for when people leave. So that should be coming up very quickly. And I do book clubs. I do them virtually. I was just at one. I flew up to where you are to do my mom's this last weekend. And so I love doing book clubs in the Los Angeles area. I go. If they're online, I'll show up at your book club and you can ask me all kinds of questions.
Very good. So, Leslie, what would you tell your 20 something self today?
That's a good one. I think I would tell my 20 something self that it will work out,
Mm,
that if your passion is to write, keep writing. Find a way to just keep going on it and doing what you really love. And I would also tell my 20 something self take more risks.
mm,
Don't be as nervous about trying new things,
yeah.
even if you fail, because you might succeed. So I
Well, and
think
you've done
that's
a lot of cool things. I would, if you had been 20 and looking out, would you have thought of yourself as an author and a writer?
no. When I was 20 something, I thought I was going to just be a television producer. That's really what I went to do when I went into the studios. And I can't say I fell into it, but most of the time I was on the show Hill Street Blues.
Hmm.
And so most of the time I was on the lot, I was walking around going to the sitcoms and just watching Bob Newhart and all these other people, shoot their shows. And I just thought it looked like fun.
Uh-huh.
So my 20 something self would never have thought, oh, you're going to end up as writing sitcoms and then you're going to end up writing books. I just never thought of myself as a writer in that way.
Oh, so cool. Well, that gives a lot of people hope. We're talking about that they could
You
be
never know where your life is going to end up.
exactly. And did you get a chance to go to our online store today and take a look and see
I
something?
did.
What
And I'll tell you
spoke
what
to
I
you?
really liked because it spoke to me. The card that said, "You got this." No, really, you do. That really spoke to me because I have to sometimes say that to myself, even
Yeah,
before a podcast. It's like, it's going to be fine. You're going to do great. It's like,
absolutely. I love that you like that one.
that was my favorite.
And it'll be my pleasure to send that to you.
Thank
So don't
you.
forget. Or you could pass it along to someone who is forgetting that they
Yeah.
got it. Pleasure. All right. Thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us and sharing your book and the topics, the very cool topics that came into your book and those characters.
Thank you so much for having me.
My sincere thanks to Leslie for such a thoughtful and heartfelt conversation. What stayed with me most is this idea that even within the same family, we can experience the same moment in completely different ways. And yet, it's the willingness to stay connected, to listen, and to understand that allows us to find our way back to each other. Here are 3 reflections to carry with you from this episode. 1, the stories we inherit and uncover shape how we see ourselves and our relationships. 2, no two people experience the same moment in the same way, even within the same family. And 3, sometimes understanding begins when we become curious about someone else's experience. If you'd like to connect with Leslie, check our show notes. We have all of her details there. And if this conversation resonated with you, take a moment and reflect on this. What stories from your family have shaped who you are today? Not to judge them, not to rewrite them, but simply to notice them. So important to do that, you guys, because sometimes awareness is where understanding begins. And speaking of what comes next week on Girl Take the Lead, we welcome Lynn Blades. Lynn is the founder of Legacy Leadership and a globally recognized executive coach who helps organizations build inclusive cultures where diverse talent can thrive. With a background as an award-winning journalist and experience coaching leaders across industries like tech, finance, and media, she brings a powerful perspective on modern leadership. In our conversation, we explore burnout, vision, and what it really takes to lead sustainably, especially for women navigating high-performance environments. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for being here, and talk to you soon. Bye.